Welcome aboard. If you're watching this, then let me be the first to say congratulations. You've recently decided to play Maokai Support, and this is your first or maybe second or third video in the journey. As you can see by this graph, Maokai Support hit critical mass at the beginning of Season 11 with how strong Imperial Mandate was, but even after that item got nerfed, Maokai still had one of the most consistent win rates of all supports, hovering around at 52% at all times. And while it seems like most players have forgotten about him, I'm here to show you how an individual one-tricked Maokai Support all the way into Korean Challenger. Our Korean Maokai one-trick we're analyzing today is known as Doomsim, and he has only played Maokai Support this season to some ridiculous results. After speaking with Doomsim, this is actually one of two accounts he has. On his other account, Domsim, he's been playing League since Season 2, so he's an old man just like me. He picked up Maokai Support in Season 3 and has played over, get ready for this, has played over 6,000 games of Maokai Support in his League of Legends career. He crawled up the ranks quickly, moving from Platinum in Season 3 to Diamond in Season 4 until he finally hit Challenger for the first time in Season 5. He slowed down a bit in Seasons 6 through 9, serving Korea's army as is mandatory, but still was able to play some games here and there. When he finally got home at the tail end of Season 9, he quickly recovered all of his skills. In Season 10, he played over 170 games and finished the season with an insane 64% win rate in Challenger again. Now in Season 11, he has turned it up again. On his Doomsim account, he has played Maokai Support over 650 times with an impressive 57% win rate into the top of Korean Challenger. He's currently ranked number 22 on the Korean ladder, above some of the biggest names in League of Legends like Faker, Dopa, and pretty much everyone on Gen G. He streams almost all of his games and aspires to be a big streamer one day, so make sure you check him out after this video while he continues to climb higher and higher to this day. While Maokai has consistent win percentage, there are a few things you should be aware of on why some people don't pick him. First of all, his early game is pretty weak, so if you're into someone like a Mumu Support who can dominate at level 1, he's not the champ for you. Also, Maokai's base mana pool is low, so if you spam abilities early game, you'll normally find yourself and kind of just standing there like a tree. He's team dependent, so in lower ranks you may want to avoid him because unlike someone like LeBlanc Support, he can't 100-0 the enemy ADC by himself. And finally, and most importantly, the root of Maokai's issues stem from people not believing in him. I'm sorry. But even with all of these potential problems, Doomsim has found a way to make it work. Before the game even starts, Doomsim is waiting to level his abilities. This is important on every champion, but I thought I'd mention it here because he's so disciplined in doing so. He holds on to leveling anything in case of an invade to decide what he really needs. Don't ever rush yourself to automatically level an ability before laning phase starts because you may need another one depending on the circumstances of the game. Most commonly at level 1, however, he is leveling his W or Twisted Advance. This is a targeted snare that lets Maokai dash right next to the enemy he's chosen. Any CC that is point and click is strong, but Twisted Advance is one of the premium ones in the game because it also makes Maokai untargetable during his travel time. This means he can't be selected for new abilities, and also he can dodge abilities and auto attacks during his journey, even turret shots. Doomsim doesn't use it much level 1 unless someone is overextended in lane, but during the later stages of the game, this ability is super strong against high mobility champions. Think someone like LeBlanc. This ability is effectively a carry's worst nightmare since they can really do nothing to dodge it. He maxes this ability second to extend its snare duration and lower its cooldown. The ability he does max first and also grabs at level 2 is his Q or Bramble Smash. It's a line skill shot that slows enemies hit by 99% for 0.25 seconds, and if they're close to Maokai, they'll instead be both stunned and knocked back. I asked him why he maxes this first over his other abilities, and the reasoning he gave me was because its cooldown is so low and the utility it offers with that cooldown is insane. Bramble Smash can be used both offensively to CC enemies and even push them towards his team, or defensively to help peel for his carries and knock the opponents away. You should also note that Bramble Smash can be used to disrupt other people's dashes as well. Think about someone like Rakan's W or even Leona's Zenith Blade. Level 2 is also when Doomsim says you hit your first power spike. Now having two forms of CC, his 2v2 power is immense, so he likes to bust flash to snare an enemy, igniting them and knocking them towards his teammate. This is most powerful if he's able to get a level 2 advantage over the enemies in lane, but can also work if his enemy laners are level 2 as well. well. He looks to employ this strategy almost every game. At level 3, he grabs Maokai's E or sapling toss ability. Once these little dudes land, they'll pursue the first nearby visible enemy to them. If they reach that enemy or just run for too long, they'll explode, dealing magic damage to those around them and slowing those enemies as well. The damage the saplings do doubles if they are first thrown into a bush. When an AP focused Maokai may be stacking these in bushes for mass damage, Doomsim instead uses saplings mostly for their utility. He uses them throughout the game as budget wards, to check brushes, and to protect against potential ganks since they give sight and won't run away unless an enemy is in range. Don't overdo the saplings early game because they can quickly drain your mana. When he's suspicious of a gank, he can toss a sapling in riverside brush or hugging a wall on the bottom brush so that they won't aggro against the minions that walk through the lane. As we stated at the beginning of the video, Maokai's early game isn't the strongest, so most of your laning phase consists of hanging back and using your saplings to ensure you're safe from ganks or outside pressure. For your other abilities, you'll typically save those for if a laner oversteps, to counter engage the enemy support, or when your jungler finally decides that you're worth a gank. Note that you do have potential to trade if you have your keystone rune up and your passive. Your passive is absolutely insane and it heals you for a pretty solid amount, so use this whenever it's up throughout laning phase and throughout the game to make sure you can survive some pretty crazy stuff. Finally, at level 6, he grabs his ultimate or Nature's Grasp. Nature's Grasp is a huge, slow-moving wall of 5 branches that snare an enemy longer depending on how far the particle has traveled. Because it's so slow, one way Doomsim uses this ability is behind walls to disguise the travel time. And just like Maokai's Q, you can use this ability offensively or defensively, and one of the best times to do so is when either your team or the enemy team is fully committed. If someone's chasing your team down or locked in combat with them, it's more difficult for the enemy to dodge, and if they do attempt to, that can mean them losing out on a lot of DPS. The final way that you can ensure Maokai's ultimate hits is by comboing. Your most basic combos look like this. If an enemy is close to you, you can use your W or flash W them to close the gap and snare them, then use your Q to do more damage and apply your stun. Now activate your ultimate to stack its snare onto the target, toss your E to where you expect them to escape to, and then finally finish with some auto attacks while you wait for cooldowns. There will be many cases where you want to lead with your ultimate because of its extreme range, so of course you'll want to first cast your R and start walking towards your target during the travel time. Now use your E, since the longer snare from using the ultimate further away has given you more time. Use your W to extend the duration of the snare. Auto attack until that snare is about to expire, and then use Q to add one last CC to that enemy. For this combo, you could switch when you use your E and W depending on how much time you have left on your ultimate snare. Adjust accordingly to your situations. And these combos come in handy mid-game, where his plan is always to stick on the strong side or jungler side of the map. If his jungler is top side, he will move to top side. If the jungler moves to bot side, he will position closer to bot side, etc, etc. By mid-game, Maokai is a tanky CC god, but unless you're super fed or an enemy is low, your kill potential is still minuscule without teammates. Sticking somewhat close to his jungler means that he's very likely to be positioned somewhere where he can have a big effect on a fight if one breaks out, or react quickly if the enemy team oversteps into his team's side of the map. To help him get to fights faster, he, like many Korean Maokai supports, skips a mythic item first and instead normally goes for a dead man's plate most of the time. The theory behind this is that Maokai benefits heavily from movement speed, of which he could potentially purchase Shirelia's, which offers no tank stats for him and is largely wasted, or Chem Tank, whose movement speed was also largely nerfed thanks to speedy junglers, so Dead Man's Plate is the really only obvious choice. He normally doesn't purchase a mythic item until much later in the game, and in most of his match history you won't even see one. He'll either go Dead Man's Plate into an Abyssal Mask, or against AP heavy teams he'll instead build Abyssal Mask first into Dead Man's Plate. The thought process behind Abyssal Mask is it's just another amazing choice on Maokai because literally every ability besides his sapling toss can trigger the bonus 15% damage taken debuff it applies on enemies. Once teamfights roll around, these items come in handy as well. Doomsim told me that it's important to start the engage with a flash W if you have other members on your team that don't have targetable CC abilities. Flashing in or just hard engaging forces the enemies to scramble and break formation, and allows easy setup for the rest of your team to lock down that selected enemy. He again likes to use his ultimate either to combo his CC behind a wall so enemies are unaware of it approaching, or in the heat of battle to disrupt the flow of the enemy team. With Maokai's passive, you can sop up a lot of damage by healing yourself with regular auto attacks attacks in a team fight, so he's normally not shy to continue pursuing unless this passive is on CD or he's really low HP. He also never forgets that Maokai is one of the strongest peel supports in the game. Instead of using all of your CC to go in, if you see one of your teammates about to get dove or in the process of getting dove, he instead will turn the tables on them, snaring them and knocking them up, and protecting his carry. Some quick Maokai tips and tricks. First off, you know Maokai's Q knocks back enemies, and that knockback is more potent depending on how close the enemy is to him. You should also know that it's possible to knock enemies over smaller walls on the map. This can be helpful for peeling. The true fun fact here is that your sapling's movement speed when running towards an enemy is dependent on the boots you've bought. Normal boots increase their speed by 25, Swifties and Mobies increase it by 60, and other boots will increase their speed by 45. And finally, you can also buffer abilities. A true buffer exists on your Q, where you'll first press Q and then flash if you need some more range. Doomsim also suggests W flashing as well. While not really a buffer, if you click W on an opponent that's out of range and then flash into their range, your W will automatically cast after you flash, making the whole flash W process a lot smoother and removing any human error. For his build, he starts every game with steel shoulder guards. He then looks to the enemy team for his first item. Against 80 heavy or balanced teams, he'll grab Dead Man's Plate first. If they're very AP heavy, he'll instead grab an Abyssal Mask. His third item will be whichever item he did not purchase second. Along the way, he's building his boots, preferably getting boots of swiftness, but if they have 3 auto attackers, he'll instead get plated steel caps. And if they have an annoying CC champion like Morgana, he may instead get Mercury treads. He then finally looks to build his mythic item, either getting Locket to become more tanky, or Imperial Mandate if his team needs a bit more damage, or honestly most commonly skipping a mythic altogether and buying a Zonia's to survive. If the game goes long or he needs some more oomph in his build, he'll buy an Elixir of Iron, and throughout the whole game, as a good support does, he's buying control wards and potentially a ward stone if the game goes very late. For his runes, he takes Aftershock for additional tankiness and damage, Font of Life to help with sustain, Bone Plating because it's just the best rune, and Unflinching to more easily move around in teamfights. He also brings Biscuit Delivery for even more sustain, and because it synergizes with his other secondary rune, Time Warp Tonic. He takes Time Warp Tonic mostly for the 5% additional movement speed it gives you when you are under the effects of a potion. For his flex runes, he brings 1 Adaptive Force and 2 Armor, 2 Magic Resist, or 1 of each, depending on his lane opponents. Maokai Support works well with aggressive ADCs like Lucian and Draven, or APCs in bot lane like Ziggs or Cass. Maokai Support struggles against stronger Enchantress supports like Yuumi or Sona, or heavy poke supports like Zyra and Brand. If you're looking for more off-meta tanky supports, go check out our Amumu video from last week. If you want to talk about some of these builds, theorycraft, or suggest future champions, check out our Discord in the link below. If you want to see me try this live, catch me on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. See you guys in the next video. Peace.